I wanted to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this video. We will be discussing miscarriage. So if that's something that is too triggering for you to talk about, please scroll, please protect your mental health, and don't engage unless you are mentally able to have this conversation. Okay, now let's get into it. So I'm sure everyone at this point has seen the woman, 24 years old, who was arrested in Georgia for a miscarriage. And the technical reason she was arrested was the unlawful disposal of a body. But that's what I want to discuss. So let's get into this. She had her miscarriage at 19 weeks. There is only one documented case that I could find of a 19-week gestation, a baby that was born at 19 weeks that survived, and they have serious medical issues. And that's not really the point. The point is this woman miscarried in her home at 19 weeks, and she took the remains and threw it in the dumpster. And I understand that that concept can be upsetting, because when you think of a 19-week pregnancy, you're picturing in your mind this little teeny tiny baby, and the thought of throwing that in the dumpster is really, really upsetting to some people. But the thing is, there's a couple different ways that we need to address this. First off, she wasn't arrested until after an autopsy was performed, and she was arrested for the unlawful disposal of the body, which means the baby never even took a breath. There was never any life. It was never alive. It was born unalived. And because of that, there are no laws on how you properly dispose of a miscarriage. The vast majority of miscarriages happen in the first 12 weeks. The vast majority of miscarriages happen when a woman is on the toilet and they are flushed. And that was my personal experience. When I had a miscarriage, I flushed it. I didn't try to dig it out of the toilet. I just kind of wanted to be done with it. And I think we also have to look at how grief impacts each and every person. Now, we don't know what this woman's journey was. We don't know if this was a pregnancy she's been trying for years, or we don't know if this was, she even knew she was pregnant. We have no idea what her background is, but we do know that a miscarriage is not a crime, and disposing of that miscarriage also should not be a crime. These laws are in place to protect babies that are born living from being put in the dumpsters. We have seen so many times of babies that are born living that are buried in backyards, babies that are born living that are left in the woods, babies that are born living that are put in dumpsters, and because the mother has no clue what to do with them. I'm not excusing it. I just want to be able to acknowledge the difference. This woman gave birth to a non-living baby. There was no signs of life, no breath, zero chance that this baby had of surviving. And I just want to ask, who are we to judge what this woman decided to do after the miscarriage? Sure, it wasn't what you would have done, but that doesn't mean she did anything wrong, nor should she be arrested. She also had complications after the miscarriage. She was found bleeding out, laying on the ground outside her apartment. So she was obviously not in good condition. And I think that's the second part of this discussion we have to get into. Women in states like Georgia are so scared to go to the hospital for miscarriages because of what could potentially happen that they are not going. And I have to be completely frank. When I had my miscarriage, my doctor suggested that I go to the hospital while I was having my miscarriage, because I was born with something called omodicilia syndrome, where the cilia hairs in my body do not function as they are supposed to. Now, women have cilia hairs in their lungs and in their fallopian tubes. So she wasn't sure if it was an ectopic pregnancy or if it was a regular pregnancy. At that point, it was too early to have a miscarriage, and I hadn't had a miscarriage. I pretty much found out that I was pregnant and then had a miscarriage all within the same week. So it was very, very quick and very difficult to process. But I have to be completely honest, the hospital visit while I was having my miscarriage is the most traumatic thing that I have experienced in my entire life. I had to have an intravaginal ultrasound where I could hear the heartbeat, and I knew that I was miscarrying because of how much that I was bleeding. And that's something that I will never, ever forget. And I wish to this day that I had never, ever gone to the hospital. I wish that I had just handled that at home, and I would never, ever have that memory, because it's awful, and I don't wish that on anyone. But getting back to the point of this video, we should be able to miscarry safely. We should be able to miscarry where we want to if we have any indication that we are miscarrying. At least me, for my experience, I didn't know before I just started bleeding, and I started bleeding a lot, and I knew it was not good. It was right away. It wasn't like there was a spot here and a spot there. It just started. And that's why I wanted to give a trigger warning, because this can be hard and heavy to talk about. And most women have experienced a miscarriage, whether it was in the first few weeks of a pregnancy or, unfortunately, whether it was later in that pregnancy. But regardless, most women have had this experience, and most women disposed of their miscarriages at home. Now, there were some who were able to go to the hospital, have the miscarriage, have the fetus removed through a D&C, and then maybe they were able to do something else, so that bury it, cremate it, kind of whatever they wanted to do. But as women, we need to be supporting women. We need to be fighting against these arrests, these laws that are making it dangerous for us to miscarry. This woman should not have been arrested. She didn't do anything wrong. Sure, it might not have been the ideal way to dispose of the fetus, but that's not a crime. That's not illegal. We cannot use laws to justify different meanings of the law. This was not a fully developed baby. This was not a full-term pregnancy. This was nothing of the sort. 19-week gestation pregnancies do not survive. Like I said, there was only one case of a known 19-week gestation baby that was born that has survived, and they have serious medical condition, which is a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day on. As women, though, this really should be eye-opening for us. This should be scary. She couldn't have prevented her miscarriage, just like any other woman couldn't have prevented her miscarriage. And sure, you might not agree with what she decided to do with her fetus after she gave birth to it, but that's not for us to judge. That's not for us to decide. I mean, she's going through all this grief, all this pain, and she probably did what she thought was best for her. So, I mean, let's just come together as women. Let's support women. Let's fight these laws. Let's not make this harder for women who are already having miscarriages and going through what could possibly be the hardest and most traumatic experience of their life.